for a moment.
It's important to note, too, that Jonathan was very ill at this time. He had cut himself somehow, either exposure to the obelisk or exposure to the alien.
It's true. Jonathan, you had touched the obelisk, hadn't you?
Yes, I did. After, like I say, I found it, saw it, sat down, and you know.
Do you think that was the source of your injury?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I know that the texture, the outside feeling of this thing was almost like dry ice. So my conclusion is that maybe I burned my hand on the cold.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. So you drove straight home?
Well, I drove home fairly straight, as straight as I could considering what had happened. I had to stop a couple of times because I continued to get sick, and I actually got out of the car and tried to get a little fresh air. I did stop at a ranger station, but there was no one there, and I was hoping to, you know, get some kind of help for myself. You know, I felt dehydrated, my head was throbbing, my hand felt like I had, you know, smashed it in a car door or something. And I was very tired, but I just kept driving after that until I got home. And once I got home, I felt like, again, I had come back to civilization, except for the fact that in the rearview mirror I could see this large, wrapped-up item that I had brought back with me.
It must have been still, at this point, kind of surreal for you.
Absolutely.
To realize you had a body with you.
Well, to be honest, I didn't think of it as a body. I thought of it as something dead. I don't know that I could bring myself to really believe that it was an intelligent life form at that time. I think only later, when my friend Gary tried to convince me of what I had, would I deal with that reality. You know, I was totally in denial. I mean, this was a non-human to me, and it killed my dog in such a fashion that I felt vindicated by killing it. You know, I felt that it was completely fine. But I still had a lot of remorse, not knowing exactly what I had done.
Or what the creature really was, I guess.
Right.
So you got home and you put the creature, as I recall, in your freezer.
Yes. I started thinking about what to do with it. I was afraid, I was upset. I didn't know what I should do. I thought about burying it. But I was so sick I wasn't going to do anything at that time. And I thought, well, it's a piece of meat. I guess I need to preserve it if I'm going to show it to anybody.
Sure.
So the garage was right next to my car, and that's where my freezer was. And it wasn't in the house. It wasn't connected to the house. And I didn't want this thing to be connected to me. So I figured that, you know, without thinking, I just decided that's where it should go.
And so in it went. You had a big enough freezer to store this thing, I take it.
Oh, yeah, I had a large freezer.
And
practically empty.
And practically empty. So in it went, with no doubt some crinkle French fries or something.
Yeah.
And you locked up the freezer and walked away.
I locked the freezer, closed the garage door, and went into the house and tried to just relax, tried to calm down.
At this point, did you consider calling the police? Now you've got a phone. The Rangers weren't there, but you could call 911.
Yes, I had thought about calling the police. I had thought about calling everybody. You know, I had thought about calling NASA, the National Guard, anybody.
Sure.
You know, I didn't want this thing in my life. And I don't know how to explain the feeling I had, but I was so exhausted that when I could barely get in the house. I picked up the phone. I called my girlfriend. She wasn't there. I left her a message, said, I'm home. Call me. Very important. I called my best friend, Gary. He wasn't home. I left him a message. I said, call me or come over immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically sat there, not knowing what to do. Really not thinking. Just trying to calm down.
Yes, it's really interesting how people react when they listen to a story like this, because they're listening in a calm, rational way to a man who's telling a story about not a calm, rational event. And so people tend to say, well, gee, I would have done this or I would have done that. You don't know how you're going to react in a situation like that. You had been in mortal combat. Your dog had been killed. You had just killed a creature that appeared not to be of this earth. It's hard to know how a person would react. Armchair listeners are quick to suggest, well, you should have done this or you should have done that. I think so far I would have pretty much done what you did.
Well, if I had it to do over again, I would have done things differently.
What would you have done?
Well, if the exact same thing happened the way it did, I still would have brought it back, but I think I would have definitely taken it directly to a university facility.
Or some sort of authority.
Right.
Uh-huh. All right, we're going to take a break here at the top of the hour, and if you would be so kind, Doctor, people are asking that you repeat the scream of the alien that I know you have on tape.
Got it.
So, excellent. Stand by, everybody. Robert, thank you for standing by while we unwind this story once again. And then we're going to take calls from all of you. So, if you have questions or observations, stand by because your calls are coming up. And by all means, get up on the web. You've got to see the rescanned photographs. They're absolutely incredible. Okay, here we go. I'm always pausing there to be sure I'm not about to interrupt myself again. Once again, Dr. Jonathan Reed and Robert Rafe. Gentlemen, welcome back. We had the luxury, thank goodness, of some time tonight. And so, Doctor, you brought this creature home. At some point then, how long after you had brought the creature home did you remove the creature from the freezer?
Approximately 8 hours.
8 hours, huh?
Yes, I went in the house and rested, tried to rest, which was impossible. Tried to think of other things to get this out of my mind, but absolutely futile effort. Couldn't sleep more than about 10 minutes without waking up. It felt like a living nightmare. Finally, I actually got dressed thinking it'd help me get tired, and walked back out to the garage and had to take another look. And,
all right, and so did you actually remove it or just look at it in the freezer?
No, I removed it. I actually picked it up.
All right, in the videotape, folks, I can tell you this. You see much more. In the videotape, it actually shows the doctor laying this creature out on the floor, unwrapping it, and then you did a cursory examination. I caught some on videotape. I noticed you opened its mouth.
Yes.
You opened its eyes and seemed to be trying to remove something from the eye. I couldn't quite tell.
Well, eyelids seemed to be quite tough. The actual tissue the muscle tissue was quite solid, and I was just trying to open it.
You've got to stay good and close to the phone, Doctor.
Okay. Anyway, I was trying to open the eyelids, and the tissue that made up the eyelid and the muscle was very, very tough. Facial structure of this creature was very old looking.
Yeah, it looks
very
old.
Coarse skin, almost like a pig's skin.
Yeah, and you can see veins clearly, or what we would think of veins anyway.
Right. The neck was exposed to all of the different muscles, and you could see subcutaneous veins and or some of the ligaments actually in the neck. Color of the tissue was somewhat of a pinkish blue at first. It's in the woods. But once I had gotten it home and it had been wrapped up for, well, probably 8 or 9 hours and in the freezer, the color of the tissue changed a little bit. It became more of a brownish blue, brownish pinkish blue. It was definitely darkening, but I assumed that was possibly due to the freezer.
Yeah, well, part of the and or part of the process of death, I would guess, of the creature. Now, you, after that examination, wrapped it back up, put it back in the freezer.
Yes, I did.
Was there anything notable you can tell us about the examination itself, other than what you said about the eyes? Oh, there was the clothing.
The clothing was made out of some strange fabric, and at that time, I did not attempt to remove it or peel it back. It was almost like it was adhered to the skin. It was almost like it was glued to the skin. But it was interesting from the standpoint that the hands and the arms and the torso were all one. It was like one big glove. The creature had 3 fingers in this glove. But after another examination where we actually probed the bone tissue and felt through this outer, what we called the skin suit, it actually had 5 fingers. The glove itself was more like a mitten, but it had 3 large fingers, one for the thumb and 2 fingers in each of the other.
Was it, Doctor, was it meshed together with the rest of the clothing, what you're calling this mitten or glove?
Yes, it was all seamless.
Seamless. And you tried to cut into it, didn't you?
Yes, in a later examination with Gary, which we videotaped and audio taped, we attempted to cut into the fabric, and I used an X-Acto knife and made an incision in the fabric about 4 to 5 inches, and within a second, it started to almost gelatinize and come together. Sort of form itself.
Yeah, sort of an instant healing, if you will. That was a second examination.
Yes.
Following that examination with Gary?
Yes.
Where is Gary now?
At which point? Second examination?
No.
Or currently?
Currently.
Gary is gone. After about the 9th day, and we had encountered all kinds of trouble and problems with being followed and having people go through our house and being run off the road, and numerous events. Gary went in one direction, I went in the other to secure some evidence in another place, and that was the last time I've heard from him.
What kind of doctor are you?
Psychologist.
Psychologist.
Research psychologist. Developmental psychiatrics, which is child development.
When did you end your practice?
That day.
That day. That was it. You're literally, I don't know if on the run is the right word now, but
I think that's pretty close.
Pretty close, huh? And Gary is too, and you have not heard a word from Gary?
No.
All right.
I have tried to find him through all kinds of means, and it's been futile.
He may be out there listening right now. If he is, do you want him to contact you?
Yeah, if he is, he knows how to contact me. I've made several attempts to get that word out. All
right. Let's backtrack a little bit. When you played a scream the last time you were on the air, last week,
yes.
It just blew my mind. That scream occurred when you hit the alien. When did the scream occur?